This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSPORT Fan Network. TalkSPORT. Powered by fans.
Hello, welcome to this edition of Red Side of the Trent, here to preview the first game of the fixture of the 25-26 season. Delighted to be joined by Dave Lane from Beesotted Brentford. Dave, how are you first of all? Are you well?
Yeah, I am. Really good, thank you. Yeah, looking forward to the season starting. Pre-season's kind of blink and you miss it. We haven't had many fixtures, so it's hard to know where we are in terms of our preparedness. But it's quite a juicy one to start the season with. So we're looking forward to Sunday. Looking forward to a trip up to Nottingham. So bring it on.
Yeah, no, it's as I just said before we started recording, it's a very fascinating one with Brentford because there's so many outs, more key outs than ins. I'd probably argue. I mean, losing Thomas Frank to start with. I mean, let's start at the top really with him. I mean, he's been at Brentford for several years, was very successful. Obviously, did really well in the Championship, getting you that step closer to the Premier League. Got you in the Premier League, has established yourselves, and now he's left for Tottenham. I mean, how's that been perceived by Brentford fans first of all?
Yeah, I mean, it was a tough one to watch, to be honest with you. I think it was a day that we knew was always going to come, but he'd started to get linked with quite a lot of the big jobs. Sooner or later, he had to take one really, because it's almost like whether he wanted to go or not, he didn't really have a choice, because if he ever had ambitions beyond Brentford or whatever happened in the future, he would have been thrown back at him that you turn down Tottenham, you turn down this, you turn down that. You don't get these chances once you've been offered. They just you get kind of tarred whether bottled it or didn't have the ambition, or small time kind of banner around your neck. So I mean, Tottenham being in the Champions League, I think it was too big a carrot for him to refuse. And I think we're realists at Brentford. We kind of know that if Tottenham or an Arsenal come calling, then players or managers' heads are going to turn. So it was always going to be a case then of who was it going to replace him, what the next chapter looked like at Brentford. And as I said, I think it was a day we all knew was going to come, but when it actually does arrive, it's kind of like, is this when the wheels come off? Is this where, was everything kind of down to him? And you have to kind of remember that it wasn't. We went to the head coach setup quite a few years ago. The head coach should be swap in, swap outable, and the buying strategy and the recruitment that happens with other people. So it's not a case of Thomas Frank comes and says, I want XYZ players. The DOF say we want XYZ players, which how will they fit in, and if the conversation happens that way around. So it's change. You know what football fans are like. Any change is seen as a threat, and especially when we're doing so well. So I think it's going to take a little bit of getting used to still. I think Keith Andrews, his backstory kind of made the whole picture a little bit more confusing. The fact that he was a free kick coach, and I think the outside world were going, how the hell can Brentford employ a free kick coach? It's ridiculous, So, the backstory didn't really help. But we're getting used to listening to Keith Andrews talk. We kind of understand the reasonings behind all of the decisions that were made, and it's a case of let's see how the season starts, and then we can kind of judge it. So but you're right, it's been a crazy summer, a big summer.
Yeah, I mean, Keith Andrews coming in for his first senior head role at a football club in terms of management is it from the outside perspective, it's a bit like, oh, does that mean, especially with all the outs that have obviously gone, which we'll get into, but like Brentford losing Thomas Frank, who was quite experienced and had time in the Championship to build on something that was really good from previous managers like Warburton, like Dean Smith, etc. So Keith Andrews coming in, does it fill you with confidence? Because from an outsider's point of view and looking at that track record, I kind of go, it could be a recipe for disaster. But knowing Brentford and how they like to promote from within, it will probably work out anyway.
Yeah, I mean, let's not forget that, you know, Mark Warburton, that was his first job in football. He was a commodities broker who decided he wanted to become a football coach. So you know, it's it's been a catalogue of kind of left field decisions. You know, Thomas Frank himself, he'd had no experience in the English game. He'd had a crack at Bromby, and you know, it didn't end too great for him. So Lee Carsley, we gave his first kind of proper crack at the management. If he wanted it, he didn't want the job full time. Dean Smith, although he had experience at Walsall, he wasn't sort of steeped in experience. So we've had Marinus Dijkhausen was an outlier as well. We kind of brought him in to replace Mark Warburton, and that ended in kind of him being got rid of after a handful of games. But so the club are confident in that, they're not scared of picking left of field candidates, and they showed with Dijkhausen that if it doesn't work, they'll address it. So it's something that, again, we're all getting used to. We've spoken about it a lot on the Beesotted podcast during the summer, that and obviously we've been bombarded by like Sky and TalkSPORT and BBC Radio London coming to us and saying, what the hell's going on, lads? And we're like, well, don't ask us. We know as much as anyone else. The only two people really that know, or the only sort of three people that really know why they've given Andrews the job or why they brought him in the first place, because he was brought in as a coach. They've identified his potential back, a long time ago, and they brought him in, and then they gave him that job. So they didn't bring as that. They wanted to employ him. They saw something in him. I think it's happened a lot sooner than they thought, but I think they brought him in with this in mind at some stage. So I think that some stage has happened this summer. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But we don't know anything about him. The owner, the directors of football, they are the only ones that really understand what his potential was and why they wanted to hire him in the first place. But you look at the track record of the coaches they brought in, all of that backroom staff that have gone to Tottenham with Frank, they recruited them all. They weren't Frank's. There wasn't Frank's team. It's not like some managers that move around and they bring their backroom staff with them. This was Brentford's team, and that's why we're a bit hacked off, really, that he's taken a lot of our staff. So it may take a little while to get used to. We're realists, we may not hit the ground running, but as you rightly said, knowing Brentford, there's every chance we will.
Yeah, I mean, the transfer market's also been mental. I mean, I'm not going to talk about Mark Flecken too much, because I do think you've replaced him with a better goalkeeper in terms of, I don't even know how you say Kelleher's first name, Callum.
Yeah. That'll do.
Callum will do. I mean, I think he's a terrific goalkeeper. Flecken was really good actually last season. I think first season bit iffy. Last season I thought he was really good actually. But then losing your captain in Christian Norgard to Arsenal and Buemo to Man United for a record transfer fee, and then the potential of Johan Wissa leaving. Where does that kind of leave Brentford in terms of personnel and everything? Because who's going to replace all them players? Obviously, Igor Thiago was not really featured last season because of injury. Kevin Schade was introduced quite slowly and was quite key last season towards the back end of last season. But I'm intrigued to know how you're going to replace 40 odd goals or whatever it was by Wissa and Buemo, and obviously that leadership from Christian Norgard is a big gap to fill. But I know Jordan Henderson's coming, so maybe he does that.
I think the Henderson move, it's the same with bringing Kelleher in for Flecken. That happened just like that. One goalkeeper went, and you're right. I think we've got a better one. Norgard, leaving. That's a big sort of kick in the goalies. That one. It's he just, he's shared the journey with us. He's one of the best players that's ever pulled on a red and white stripe shirt for Brentford. He just signed a new 2-year contract, so at the very least we get money for him, for up to 15 million, which for a 32-year-old player, it's not the end of the world. But on a kind of like more pragmatic head, he was slowing, he was picking up a lot of bookings, and he was getting injured fairly frequently. We missed him for chunks of the last 3 seasons, and he was the last to leave the training ground and the stadium because he was in ice baths, and he needed, his body was starting to show. So I'm trying to paint a kind of less gloomy picture about Norgard going. At least we got money for him, and Henderson was brought in straight away. Now, obviously, Henderson comes with a little bit of baggage after his Saudi Arabia jaunt. But, as fans, we were talking about, does that really pose a problem? Well, it's a conversation, but I don't think it's a big enough of an issue for us to kind of like start wondering why he's at our club. But he brings with him a load of experience, more experience than Norgard had. We've got a very young squad, very young team, and we're going to introduce young midfielders like Yarmouk, Konak, that are going to come in alongside him, and Malambo. And we've, there's Charlie Yanel, and there's a lot of midfielders there in and around the squad, and they're going to need sort of guidance without Norgard being there, because Yarmouk last year he looked a different player when Norgard was kind of controlling him and telling him where to go, and towards the end of the season he looked incredible. So I think he'll be looking to Henderson to kind of put that sort of like arm around him during games where he's kind of like being overrun slightly, because that, we all know that happens. Happens in most games sometimes. The quality in this division is exceptional, so he's going to need that kind of like assurance next to him. So I don't see an issue. The midfield backwards is fine. We've got Hickey back from a long-term injury, Rico Henry back from a long-term injury. We've got Michael Chiode that's signed permanently. He had an incredible loan period towards the end of the season. He's a player that excites the hell out of us. Him and Malambo are going to come bombing forward. They're really gung-ho. They've got really incredible dancing feet. They are going to be exceptional in this division. Rico Henry, his speed's on a different level, or was. He's had a big knee rebuild, so hoping he's going to come back. Up front, you're absolutely spot on. Again, we have got Nunes, player we bought from Brazil last season. He's been out injured pretty much since we had him. He had not a broken back as such, but he cracked something in his back, which kept him out for a while. He pulled a hamstring, or did something to his hamstring pre-season in Portugal. Before he arrived with I think it was a shoulder injury, or it was something like that. So we haven't seen him, and I think he was one that we kind of thought, he's going to dovetail. Bumo's going to go. He can go there. Sharda can play on the right. He has played there, but we've not seen a significant amount of minutes of him there. So, and then we've got Keane Lewis Potter that can play. Well, we bought him as a left winger. So if Sharda can switch to the right, KLP can play more advanced, because KLP was playing left back because Henry was out. So there's enough quality players there to shuffle around. But you're right, 40 goals. Wissa, a Judas Wissa, that is, if you believe what's been written and what's been hinted at, that he's doing what Isaac is doing at Newcastle pretty much. He didn't do pre-season training with us. He showed his face at the training grounds, then went. He's apparently not very happy with us because we promised him a move this summer, which there's no way we would have done. Not unless the money was there, which at the moment it isn't. And we never intended to sell Wissa and Mbumo in the same window. You know, we know that you guys were looking at Wissa last January. The money wasn't right. We had no interest in selling him at the wrong money. You know, we've just seen, you know, he didn't quite hit 20 goals, but, you know, let's call it 20. We've seen what that 20 goals is worth in the Premier League this summer. With players moving from West Ham to Tottenham, from players leaving you and almost leaving you, and Mbeumo, and then you've obviously got Cunha going from Wolves to Man United as well. They're 40 million. It's 40 million for a 20 goal striker,
or more, really,
or more, depending on your age. And I guess Wissa isn't a spring chicken as such, but he's not. You know, he's got another 4 or 5 years left in him. Yeah. So, and he's got better and better and better. And you put him into a good team. You know, you put him into a Newcastle, put him into a Liverpool, you put him into a Man City. You know, I'm not going to say Forest. I'm not going to blow smoke. But you put him into a good team. He's going to get, you know, give him good service. I think none of those goals were from the penalty spot. So he's a proper poacher. You know, you've seen that with your own eyes. So you know, he's a good player, but he's tarnished his reputation. So we have to get closure on Wissa as quickly as that can happen, the better. We've still got, you know, 2.5, 3 weeks of the transfer window left, and we're looking at a lot of players. So, you know, some of them are the same ones you're looking at, but you know, there's still time. So the first 3 or 4 games of the season might be more tricky than we'd hoped.
Yeah, because this was obviously in his last year of contract, so I guess you need to.
No, he's got 2 more. He's got 2 more.
Is it 2 more? Is it okay?
Yeah. It's a year plus a.
So you could trigger. You can trigger basically.
Oh, it's 2. I mean, why wouldn't you trigger it? You know,
of course. Yeah, no, it makes more sense. And I guess like for him, it is like doing that is you never want to see it. Like, look, I mean, at least with Morgan Gibbs White's situation, he was still coming to training, he was still acting professional, whether he was going to go to Tottenham, and obviously Marinakis tying him down with tooth and nail, however he did it. He ended up staying. So yeah, no, it's a shame when a player does that, because like I mean, I was at the game when you beat us 2-0 at the City Ground, and the connection you were having with Vissa's supporters was brilliant to obviously see from that point of view. And you kind of think, well, this guy surely would never do something like that. And then lo and behold, he's doing it. It's a bit of a wild one. Tell us about Malambo, because Brentford have got this really good knack of getting these players from right under the radar. You've never heard of them. I mean, Brentford have been in the Premier League for ages, and half the time you've never heard of any of the players. Most when they just pop through and they start playing. Like Yaram Look, and you're like, where's he come from? And he's brilliant. What you can tell us about him? I know he's come from Feyenoord for 20 million euros or so.
Yeah, he had a great under-21 tournament in the summer. From what I hear, I didn't watch any of it, but yeah, Dutch youth players come through all youth levels, I believe. Again, yeah, hugely exciting midfielder, box-to-box midfielder, but a lot of tricks. You know, it's hard to, you know, you look at his YouTube, you know, show reel. It's hard to know how that kind of, you know, translates into the Premier League from the Eredivisie. That's not to, you know, to slate, you know, Dutch football, but you know, they're not like for like. So, but he scores. He travels with the ball. He'll help in attack and defence. A lot of pace, a lot of potential, and I think he comes because there were other teams in for him. He wasn't, you know, he was slightly under the radar. I don't think he was completely off of it, but he comes to Brentford because of, you know, the track record we have of developing and not standing in players' way, which, you know, really hacks us off with Wissa, because there's no way that we would stand in his way if the right offer comes in. So his behaviour, you know, is actually, it's a disrespect to himself as and the fans and his teammates and the club. You know, he could be playing and still be getting his transfer this window. It's just the fact that, you know, he's been petulant and really disrespectful. So, but, you know, back to your question about Malambo, yeah, we're expecting big things, you know, but unfortunately, a lot of the players we'd be expecting big things of, like Thiago as well, have arrived and got injured. And I don't know whether it's the intensity, the transition, arriving in the country and getting trained to be ready for the Premier League that breaks them. I don't know if we're unlucky. I don't know if there's a problem within the training and all the medical teams. I don't know any of that. It might be a bit of each of it, but we have been kind of cursed a bit by the fact that we had Ivan Toney gone this time last year, and we spent 30 odd million on Thiago. He'd arrived early, got injured, and he arrived injured, then had pre-season, then got injured at AFC Wimbledon in his first game. Then we saw him literally a handful of times last year, got injured again, and now he's back. So we've spent money, we've spent big money to remain competitive, and not all of them have worked out. Like Cavallo, he hasn't shined yet. Damsgaard took a season and a half, now he's world class again. So sometimes it just takes a little bit of time, and sometimes, I think we've been unlucky with injuries, but that's the way it goes in football sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, you said you've not played too many pre-season games. Do you think Brentford will adapt a similar approach to last season, where it was, depending on who they played, was whether they played possession-based football or more of a direct counter-attacking style, which I saw at the City Ground firsthand and really got frustrated with it. I mean, it was, fair play to Thomas Frank and being like that, because some managers are stuck in their ways, like the manager he's replaced. So at Tottenham. So how do you see Brentford approaching this season largely?
Yeah, I think that pragmatism will continue for sure. I think that was one of Thomas Frank's strengths. He didn't come to the Premier League and give it the big un like some of the managers have, that say, "Oh, this is the way we play." We play one way. We've seen that. We've got two styles. If Plan A doesn't work, you try Plan A even better. If there is no Plan B, I think Keith Andrews will continue that. I think we saw more attacking intent last season from us because of Wissa and Mbeumo and Sharda. I think that's the way we're going to have to approach a lot of these games. So yeah, I think we did pick a handful of matches where we kind of shut up shop, but they were few and far between. I know the game up at the City Ground was one of those. And there was one or two others, but not many. We weren't a kind of park the bus team. We've got it in our locker, but you'd be crazy not to. It's just one of those. You had to win that game. We knew that you'd be coming at us in waves, and we just had confidence that just let you do it. Fill your boots, boys. We're going to hit you on the break. So, and that's the way it panned out. So, I don't think that will be the way it will be on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, at the G-Tech, I mean, there was goals galore early doors. I think there was 4-3 or 5-3 in consecutive. I think a 4-2. You got your bang for your money. That's what I was going to say. But you said about you've had a lot of injury worries. I mean, coming into Sunday, how do you think you will line up? Because I personally think that Brentford might approach it the same way as you did not too long ago, where you will sit back a little bit maybe and counter attackers and say to Forest, like, you come at us because you're the home team, it's opening day, come and have a go if you dare, sort of thing.
Possibly. That's not the way I'm seeing the game. I'm not seeing that game plan. I went to the Borussia Mönchengladbach friendly at home on Friday night. We didn't look ready, if I'm honest with you. It looked like we needed another 2 weeks. We haven't got them. It's whether they'll have a behind closed doors 45 during the week, today or tomorrow, probably. I'll keep my ear to the ground. But second half against Mönchengladbach, we look decent at times, but toothless up top. There was no surprise there. There was no Wissa, no Mbeumo. They took Thiago off, and Sharda was rested or injured, so we didn't see him. Cavallo, he's not a right winger. he's a number 10. We've already got one of those in Damsgaard, so there's a couple of square pegs in round holes on Friday, but it's still time for us to bring another player in. And you never quite know with the injury lists, whether they're just precautionary rested, because it's not like it was back in the day where you needed these games to get match fit. Ideally, you do, but they get them match fit on the training grounds. It's an equation now, and they've got all the data, they've got all the metrics from the oxygen and the muscles, and they know if they're match fit or not. But sometimes it's that sharpness. So it just depends. So I'm awaiting that team sheet at 2:00 on Sunday.
I mean, do you think you've got a rough idea of what you might play and what personnel might line up?
Not really, because Kelleher didn't start on Friday night either. So we've not seen our I didn't go to Queen's Park Rangers away the weekend before in the friendly, and he played in that. He looks all right, but so I honestly could. It's not. I'm not. I don't think I'm going to be able to. I mean, there was still a couple missing in Vandenberg wasn't there, who's absolutely nailed on the start if he's fit. It's a tough one. Jordan Henderson didn't start. He came on with 10 minutes to go, so I got no idea whether he's fit. We're reliant on Sharda because we definitely need some pace and some attack coming forward on the flank. KLP, he had an okay game, he didn't look ready. So it's going to be interesting. Yeah.
Where do you think Brentford will finish this season?
I think we'll be all right. It's certainly it's a season of just taking stock, and just basically it's a year of just seeing how it goes, to be honest with you, especially in the opening weeks until we get past transfer deadline day, until we know what's happening with Wissa, until we know whether we've spent the war chest. We know there's a lot of money that we've got. We've got 10 million for Frank going to Tottenham. We've got 70 million over several windows for Mbumo. We've got 15 million for Norgard. Wissa's not going to go for less than 45 million. So we've got 100 plus million to spend. It's whether we're going to have time to do so. So I as I said to you at the start, the pundits in the outside world looking in is, Keith Andrews is going to be the first one to get sacked, and the Brentford's wheels are going to come off, and it was all about Mbumo and Wissa. We've heard it all before. It was all about Tony before. We scored more goals without him than we did with him, and and then it was all about so and so. It was all about Ollie Watkins. It was all about Neil Maupay. It was all about you go back through it all. It's all about Scott Hogan. We get rid of these players and we replace them, and it's just part of what we do. Will it continue forever? I don't know. Is this the beginning of the end? I don't know. Not with the evidence of my own eyes. That squad is really good, and it's missing two key parts of it. But that's out of our control. You don't turn 72 million pounds down from Man United for a player that wants to go, but he did it in the right way. And with the situations, it looks like it's out of our control. We just need to get rid of a rotten apple now.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I mean, have you got a red hot take for this season, Dave, from a Brentford perspective, or a Premier League one for that matter? That's all. Yeah,
well, the red hot take is we'll be all right. We may not finish 10th again, and there might be times where it looks grim, but I think there's even with points deductions, you have to be truly shocking in this division to get relegated. I mean, not even Man United and on Tottenham last year, as awful as they were bad enough to get relegated. So you have to be really, really awful. I can't see us being that bad. Who the three are, I think probably two of the teams that come up it will be proven too much for them. One of them may escape, and I think it's probably going to be Leeds, but it may not be. And I think there's, West Ham have tried to get relegated the last few seasons and failed, and the wheels might come off at the City Ground as well.
No. We're going to start spending now. The war chest is now fully erupted with this news, obviously, of the Europa League. Dave, what's the score going to be on Sunday? Have you got a score prediction for us at all? It's always a ding dong between ourselves.
Yeah, I'll take a point now. I'll go 1-1.
Fair enough. And obviously, if anyone wants to check out Beesotted, where can they do so?
X or Twitter is at Beesotted, BEESOTTED. Beesotted.com is the website, the blog, and Beesotted. If you type that into wherever you get your podcasts, Beesotted Brentford. We've got over 1,200 editions of the podcast there, so you can go back and learn your Brentford history if you like.
Real. Thank you very much, Dave, for joining us. And if there's anyone who's watched this would like to drop a like and a subscribe, it all helps along, and consider membership for future early podcast access. But until then, we'll see you all on Sunday for the game. I can't wait. So come on, you Reds.
Come on, you Bees.